Welcome, everybody, to the Swiss Army Man podcast, episode number 17. It's an interview today. We have my man Brent Powell on. We met through the internet, obviously, which is the great thing about the day and age we're living in. We can meet people and then go have conversations with them. So welcome to the show,
Twitter
Brent.
Pals.
Yeah, Twitter pals.
Thank you, man.
And
Appreciate it.
So this is your first podcast ever.
Yeah, first one. Something I've been wanting to do for a long time, ever since Gary Vee started talking about it. So appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, no, definitely. This is like the things I enjoy, actually, because I've done a few podcasts myself. So obviously, I have my own podcast, but this is about the third, I guess, incarnation of a podcast I've done. When I first started, I was like, I love podcasts and I want to do them. I think that's something that's fun, even if no one listens or a billion people listen. It doesn't matter. I just want to do it. So it's always fun when somebody hasn't done one, but like is a big podcast fan like yourself. I know obviously you listen to quite a few podcasts, as did Logan, who was my second guest. He same way. It was his first podcast. So it's always nice to like be able to like get somebody on a podcast that hasn't done one yet.
Yeah, it's when you're in sales and on the road like I am, I cover 3 states. So I got a lot of windshield time.
Yeah.
Instead of listening to country music or rap or whatever, throw on a podcast, learn something. Hopefully, what do you exactly do? Because I know are you a driver? I'm not sure because you go into places where you have to download it, right?
Yeah. So I will download most of mine. It just makes it easier. I don't like when things like cut in, cut out. So I'll just download it so I know I have it. Because I run all over, sort of like you, except for in our city, it's a pretty big area. And then I also do other cities that are like up in the mountains. So like sometimes the service is just so spotty. But I do drive for a living. I drive and say it's also sales as well. Not allowed to say the company because they don't let me, but
understand.
But yeah, I'll tell you after we finish, and then you'll be like, "Oh, that makes sense."
Sounds good. Got it. You're in Colorado, though, right?
Colorado, yeah, and you're in Virginia, correct?
Got it.
Which is where I moved.
Nice
I moved from to come to Colorado, so I moved from Virginia to come to Colorado. So
I spent some time out in Colorado. I was stationed in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Okay. Yeah,
I was the only thing to do in Wyoming is to go to Colorado. So
that's hilarious. So as I was gonna say, our last guest, Brent, is actually from Cheyenne, Wyoming. So very, very interesting.
He knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's not much to do in Wyoming.
Yeah. He was telling me the biggest thing for them every year is they have the Frontier Days or whatever. I guess it's like this big concert they have. It's like the one claim to fame they have.
Yeah, and it's the nicest part of the year. The rest of the year, it's windy and below zero. So I was not a fan. I'm not a big fan of cold weather. I don't know how you do it. You're outside of Denver?
Yeah. So about at 45 minutes south from Denver.
Okay, south of it. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so
I never really went. I guess Colorado's. Go ahead.
Guys, I say Colorado Springs area is technically we're outside. We're on the outskirts of it, but that's our main city close by.
Gotcha. We had training and stuff down there with the Air Force, so that's the only reason why I went to the base, and then I went back to Cheyenne.
Which base did you go to? Carson or Peterson or Schriever?
Peterson.
Okay. So yeah, so that's actually about. I drive past the entrance of that to go to work every day. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
I loved Colorado. Colorado was great. It was Cheyenne that was, besides the 30 days of summer that you get. I was a big fan of Fort Collins. Spent a lot of time there with the college.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
having a good time.
Yeah, that's a nice little party area. Fort Collins knows how to get down. I was gonna say. So speaking of that, you brought up being in the military. What branch were you in?
Air Force.
Air Force. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. We go to the Air Force base.
Yep.
That's cool. How many?
4 years.
4 years. Nice. Well, thank you for your service. I'm a military brat myself, so I moved all over.
Appreciate it.
So I always appreciate the military. So the nice part about being in this city is like we're still around a military presence, and so like it kind of feels more natural. You see a bunch of people who are from out of the area, so no one ever feels like that out of place. It seems like, which is nice.
Yeah, it was very the Air Force and the community always seemed to have a good relationship wherever I was. Mississippi, I was stationed there for a little bit for training,
Okay.
and everybody liked each other. It wasn't ever an issue. Colorado was very welcome. So was Cheyenne. Just the weather for me was just too much.
No, I don't blame you. So like, my dad decided when I was like 5, I guess I was like 5 because I was in kindergarten, that we would go to Iceland instead of Hawaii, which was a nice, good old.
No, I wouldn't do that to my kids.
But I actually appreciate that because it was cool because like I'm like very few people have been to Iceland, so it's like okay, I got to go there, and I'll get to Hawaii someday. It's one of the few states I haven't been to.
Yeah, that's an experience, right? Iceland, that kind of European trip. I've never been. The only overseas I've been is Puerto Rico, and that's not really overseas.
Right. No, yeah, I've been over a couple different places over there. Yeah, Iceland, Germany, a couple of, where the military bases are roughly, a couple of those places. But most of the time I spent stateside. So my dad did a lot of cruises. He was in the Navy. So he was out to sea. We'd go back to Michigan, which is where like my main family's from. So that's
gotcha.
That's kind of like secondary home. But Virginia Beach is where my parents are still at, and my brother and stuff. So I still claim that as my home.
Virginia Beach broke up a little bit.
Yeah, Virginia Beach is where. So my dad started his military career in Norfolk, the shipyards there, and then finished his career back there. So that was where he finished up. So my brother was born in Virginia, and then like I was born in Michigan, and then we moved all around, and then came back and spent from a time I was about 16 till about 30 there. So yeah. So Virginia Beach.
Yeah, my summers were spent down there as a kid. My grandfather, he was a retired Marine, retired civil servant. Okay. So he just stayed there, and my grandmother, she just probably 2-3 years ago now, I guess, she passed away. So I almost every summer down there seeing her, being on the beach, and loved going to like Virginia Beach and Cape Hatteras, and then we'd go up to Delmarva and go up towards Jersey, which is where the rest of her side of the family is for the entire summer. It was always fun going to Virginia Beach.
Nice. That's cool. I spent Virginia Beach is it's beautiful. It's one of those interesting, like the summer comes and you're like, oh man, all the tourists come, but it's like the rest of the year, it's not very cold. It's like perfect weather really to like, you don't ever have to worry about putting a jacket on really. Like you're just like walking around. It's a good place to grow up, honestly.
Yeah,
especially
I'm
when
sure.
I played a lot of sports, so like it was nice to go outside. I didn't realize until like that's the worst part about it being cold is like my kids play sports and then like you're like outside and you're like not moving and you're freezing and you're like this is the worst. So
yeah, that those Rocky Mountain winters are not anything they're not fun.
No,
for sure.
It was funny because I think it was Monday maybe we had maybe it was Friday. It was Friday, actually. It was like nice and kind of warm for like the winter time, and like driving, and then you could see like the wall of like gray clouds coming, and you were like, oh my gosh. And then it was windy, and then it was fine, and then it snowed later on that night. You were like, this makes no sense, but you just never know.
Yeah, you can have every type of weather in Virginia. It's the same, right? You can wake up in the morning and it's nice, and then by the evening you've got 2 inches of snow on the ground.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's the one thing I don't miss though is the humidity. I don't mind not having the humidity.
That was nice out there. That's true.
Yeah, having no humidity. Certainly. My wife. I was gonna say my wife visited me when we were in long distance relationship before we got married, and she landed in Virginia. She was like, "This humidity is some crap, right?"
I hope she brought a knife to cut through it.
Yeah, she was not ready for it. And it was like probably also like a 90-degree day anyway, so it was just already terrible.
Did you ever get out there and surf or anything?
I did surf for a little bit. I was never like super into the surfing per se, but I did a lot of my friends were, so like I would do it, and I'd always borrow somebody's like extra surfboard or something. I never had my own. Actually, like I like to snowboard, but like ironically, I haven't snowboarded since I've been in Colorado. But I did a bunch of times when I was in Virginia.
Really?
So we go to like the fake mountains.
Gotcha. Yeah, the school up here, the college up here by where I live in the mountains, kind of the opposite direction of Virginia Beach, closer towards West Virginia and Kentucky. And in the mountains, they've got this fake snow ramp at the university here, and it's a big deal for everybody. They'll go up there and they'll spend 2-3 hours up there tubing, and it's a good time, but it's nothing like actual getting in the hills and the mountains where you're at.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I want to go. The kids are just the older ones are starting to be able to kind of, I think they could handle like a day out, and you kind of have to spend the day there for it to make sense financially to go. It's so expensive to rent the gear and all that kind of stuff. So I think we might try that in the next year or two to go do that and take them up there and get them out on the hills.
That's awesome. That'll be fun. It's always a good experience.
Oh yeah. Well, I did it. So when I lived in Iceland, it would snow all the time. So we'd sled all the time, or tube, or that was the first real introduction to like going snowboarding is when I was like 5, 6, 7 in Iceland. So I've always enjoyed the cold a little bit for that reasons, but like other than that, like if you're just not doing anything, it's the worst. And then driving is fun too.
Oh yeah, that's why I got a Jeep. I'm a huge Jeep. I'm sure you've seen on Twitter, like you said, we become fans of Pat McAfee. I think I was trying to remember was it Gary Vee or was it Pat McAfee that we kind of bumped into each other?
I think it might have been both, to be honest. Like a kind of a sort of a similar like time frame. Like I know like we did I've been on McAfee a little longer than Gary Vee, and so like I know like and then I got real into like I listened to Gary Vee a little bit, and then it would be like, but then I went through this splurge where I was just like every day I was listening to everything, and like even catching up on back ones, and so it was everything I was listening to was McAfee and Gary Vee. So I think it might have been around that time that we kind of like I was posting I think some Gary Vee, like reposting some Gary Vee stuff and like McAfee stuff, and I think we just kind of crossed paths there, and then we've kind of just been friends ever since.
We haven't stopped talking ever since. The thing that brought me, I was wondering what brought you to Pat, because I hadn't been following Pat till about before they went to Barstool.
Yeah, that's
when I started listening to Pat, and then he left and all that. But I was listening to Gary Vee way before that. I stumbled upon him when he was still doing the YouTubes, still working a little bit here and there. Yeah. And he was even crazier. He shows some of those old clips, and he was crazier back then. The thing that brought Pat was the Troy Polamalu story.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm a huge Steelers fan, and this guy's talking about Troy and his hair, and he's in the C gap, and it's one of my favorite plays of all time, of him jumping over that front the line there, and blocking the kick. But it wasn't against Pat. But once I heard that story, I was like, I got to figure out who this Pat McAfee guy is. So
well, it's funny. So Pat
the McAfee, two of them together.
You go.
Sorry, the two of them together is the reason why we've met.
Yeah.
So Gary Vee said you need to be doing, Instagram and Twitter and 6 posts and 8 posts and that kind of stuff. And I was like, fine. Like I said, I'm going to see what it is. And then I stumble into Pat, and I stumble into you. And, Twitter's a great world. I really have embraced it now.
I enjoy Twitter. Twitter's still my favorite of all of the social medias. I mean, I do a little bit of Instagram, I do a little bit of everything else, but Twitter is like my mainstay. And so I found Pat basically like my wife's a huge Colts fan. I'm a Lions fan, obviously, but my wife's a huge Colts fan. So so when they drafted Pat, I remember when he had the incident, the allegedly incident, and joking with her and being like, "Yo, your punter got arrested," like, and all that kind of stuff. So then we started, I just follow, and you could see his antics and stuff. So I'd watch Colts games and with her and stuff, and we'd talk, and you could just tell he like enjoyed it. So like I kind of always followed it, and then I remembered him like retiring, and then I was like, oh, I wonder what he's gonna do, and sure enough, he popped up on a podcast, and I was like, oh, let me check this out. And we actually, surprisingly, our honeymoon, because we got married later than in the last couple of years, even though we've been together for years. Our honeymoon was actually, we went to go see the Lions play the Colts opening day.
Nice.
On Pat's last year. So we didn't know it was Pat's last year, but so I got to see him play before he retired, which was cool. And then so like I just started doing that, and then basically like I would have these like gaps where I couldn't deliver certain things, so I'd just be sitting for like an hour and a half, and I was like, oh, let me be creative on my phone or whatever, and I started making like little like pictures and stuff and posting those, and then Pat would interact with them, and then obviously Pat he followed me, and then we'd talk in the DMs a couple times, and just one thing led to another. And then Gary Vee, I actually found kind of Gary Vee. I knew about him before, but like when I really started checking him out was when Pat had him on the show. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll go. The first time when they were with Barstool, I was like, oh, let me go check out some more of his stuff. And then I started being a more regular follower of Gary Vee.
Yeah, Gary Vee was really the thing that got me off my butt, but I never stuck with it, right? That's why I like your podcast so much. You introduced yourself as a kind of a jack of all trades, and I'm kind of the same way. I would get into this, and then I'd find this and go, just kind of dabble in different things, right? I kind of play guitar, I kind of play soccer, I do this, I do that, and I enjoy business, but I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I've run a store before, I've run a company, don't want to do that again. So Gary Vee and your podcast and Tim Ferriss's, those guys all kind of speak to me. But this year and last year, really, I wanted to try to move forward and get to a different place because I wasn't happy. Like we had talked about, like our weight, right?
Yeah, you were talking about getting a pod or listening to podcasts, obviously.
Yeah,
and getting into stuff, and I dropped out, so I apologize. Hopefully you remember where you were at roughly.
Yeah, well, listen to you. You've had such a expansive life with baseball, and then the mental stuff that you talked about in a couple of your podcasts, and mental health is such a big thing with me because I personally haven't had anything, but the things that you've been able to achieve have been pretty amazing. And then to start a podcast and to see you reach out to somebody like Pat McAfee and Brent Tobler, I mean, I was sitting there going, I need to be doing something a little better, like old Tone. So I told the wife, and we got on the keto train because we had done keto before, and so trying to get that weight back down to where you're not huffing and puffing going up 3 flights of stairs or something like that. I'm just getting older, and it's going to be harder to knock the weight off. So
yeah, definitely. That's
how's it going?
I was gonna say that's definitely something I know. For me, I'm just trying to lose, like trying to get back to. I mean, I'm not to the point where like I'm like devastatingly like an issue, but like as you get older, the last thing I want to do is be like trying to get my weight in check while I'm like when it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, you've got a goal. You got a trip or something you're getting ready to go on?
Yeah. Right? So we're doing a cruise for the first time. My wife's always wanted to do a cruise, so May 11th, I think, is when we actually leave. That's actually my birthday, so we'll be leaving my birthday week. So I've been trying for 4 months. I've been trying to figure. Since January 11th, I'm trying to get from 215, which is what I started, down to about 175. That would be the ultimate. Like, if I could do it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm working I'm down 13 some pounds. I wanted to be by end of March. I wanted to be at 200.
Okay.
And 204 pounds. So I'm
Okay.
about, I'm almost there. And
Sweet.
then I want the end goal is to get down to 175, but I'm trying to chop it up so it's not such a big number.
Well, yeah, it has to be like digestible, right? Like you can do it to a certain extent, but then you gotta also give yourself a little grace and be able to be like, hey, like some days aren't going to be, especially in your job. Obviously you're driving a lot, like you said. I mean, it's tough sometimes to just stay on it or feel like you're like even doing anything, productive that way. But I feel like I have a lot more energy doing like keto, so I've been doing that, which is nice. It's always nice to have more energy.
Yeah, I've got the same feeling. Definitely feel better. Energy's up. I'm going to the gym again. I started that last week with the wife and the
Nice.
kids. So yeah, we're headed in the right direction. Small steps. I'm not trying to recreate the world here. Just get some of the weight off.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the thing is like every small little step. It's like with anything, like if you do a little bit at a time, it's like it doesn't feel like it's as burdensome, on you. Like trying to make it. It's nice, like in part of like I know like a lot of people who follow on Twitter or whatever know I'm basically just wearing Pat McAfee merch this year. Like that's my thing to
Yeah,
wear.
yeah, I love
So
it.
so and part of that is because I know those sizes. I purchased a lot of those shirts when I was at my lowest, which I was like at about 170
Okay.
earlier. So like I'm like to be able to fit in those, like I'm gonna have to like keep myself um to a goal. So like I'm like, okay, well we'll do that. So that's also it kind of
Yeah,
ties it sort of.
yeah, that's awesome, man. Every day I'm waiting for that. See what shirt you got on from Pat's store. Yeah,
Yeah, I need
I got a couple shirts. I need to up my Pat. Pat wouldn't be happy to listen to this because I don't have enough shirts. I can't compete.
oh, I mean I'm a nutcase though. That's like so that's I mean that's a
Uh,
I'm also
yeah.
even before that, so like I'm a huge music fan. So like I have a lot of like Carter Halsey shirts and I have a lot of like dashboard shirts, and those are I just support things that I really like, and like I'll wear them all the time. So like it's kind of that's just how I've always been. So like when it came to Pat, I was like, oh, Pat has merch, we'll just buy a bunch of Pat merch, I guess. And I'm one of those people I'm hard to shop for like birthdays and stuff. So I'm just like just give me like merch or clothes, or so I pick up like 5 or 6 shirts here and there for like birthdays and Christmases and stuff, and it adds up.
That's the way to do it. I wish I could support during the day, but really the only time I get to wear t-shirts or anything is on the weekend because of the job. So,
Yeah,
they want their own, they want their salespeople to be, suited and booted. So
it makes sense.
that's yeah, good professional appearance when you walk in to see a customer. So that's what
That
I
totally
do.
makes sense. I mean, that makes sense. That's a so while we're on that subject, because I think it's one of the big things. Even in my job, I know a lot of people that I work with are. So I work with a vast, I guess, like people who are old school. Like I work with people all the way from like their age like 60, they're almost ready to like retire. To like I'm working with like 21-year-olds, and like the distance in between. I'm 36. I am a big proponent of I treat my customer correctly, because I think no matter what, sales wise, everything else, if you treat your customer right, the sales will come. So like, is that
Relationship.
yes, is that kind of a similar philosophy you kind of go with as well?
Yes, yeah. Relationship is the only thing that matters in sales. If you build the right relationship with any customer, you're going to get a lot further in this career, in any sales career. Now, I've only been I sell building materials to
Okay.
distributors. So I cover Virginia, North Carolina, and West Virginia. Not the whole states, but sections of each.
Okay.
And we offer all the exterior building products that their contractors need. So I could be working with the roofer, the builder, all the way up to the building owner of a 5, 6, 7 different lumber yards.
Okay.
So it's a fun job. It's challenging every day, but if you don't build that relationship with those guys and answer the phone, they need a question. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough job. How long now? It's just kind of second nature.
Yeah, that's how it's always been for me. I'm my dad's, he was a business owner. He's, he works for, in a similar field of like, he has to like talk to people who have to go answer to other people. Like, I don't specifically serve like the regular retail customers. I service a store. Those are my customers, kind of that, in that kind of capacity. So kind of same for you, I guess, because you're selling it to people who are then going to obviously go to their customers and stuff. So but it's the same thing. You just treat them like your customers, and you treat them in a manner that you'd want to be treated as in that way. If you have a question, even if it's something small, answering it and kind of remembering some of the stuff about them. For me, that's big. I always try to pick up somebody's like sports team, or like, like if their kids are playing in the sport or something, ask about it. Like when you come into the store or whatever, be like, hey, how's your kids doing in their sport or whatever. So just like the personality portion of it's really important.
That's right. And I try not to do. I try not to waste time. Their time is so. Gary says it, and I never really thought about that. But the only thing we have is time, and so if I'm in there just trying to spit, hey, this is the deal of the day or whatever.
Yeah,
that's wasting their time. They don't need to know that. If they needed the deal for the day, they'd call me. So, I try to bring some value every time I go in. If they need something, then I'm the first one that they call because I brought them something that they weren't ready for. So yeah, relationship to me will always be in it. A lot of people are worried about AI and robots and all that. You go into Walmart and you have to self check out, and I just don't see in the long term that relationship, at least in what I do. I just don't see how you can beat a relationship. It's not always about price. At least in my career, it hasn't always been about price. And those customers that are loyal to you will stick with you because you've been honest and you've created that relationship. Like you said, you're talking about their kids and their trips and all that. So it's fun.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely sales is it's the closest thing to like a competitive sport that like I think I've ever like encountered. I didn't never think that as a kid, but like it is, a lot of it is like, okay, like sports is like, you have to go out and you have to like compete on the field and you have to do things the proper way. But the big part is like your relationship with your teammates and like, like having those kind of things, that camaraderie, and like a lot of that plays in the sales world that like you wouldn't think, necessarily without being through it a lot, so it's something I
totally
enjoy.
agree. Yeah. I never really put it, I've never put the two together. Once I became 16, actually it was younger than that. I was mowing lawns at 13, 14 years old. And once I saw I could make a penny versus sitting in a classroom for 4 hours and not learn a thing, I wanted to work.
Yeah.
And I've been I tell people all the time, I'm the luckiest man on earth because I have lucked into everything that I've done. Without my younger years of mowing lawns, I wouldn't have gotten the job at McDonald's.
Yeah.
And trying to get out of school in McDonald's, they were doing like a work relief, and so I left at 11 o'clock on my senior year and worked while other people were sitting in class. So
and you were making money while they were trying to figure out how to do stuff they probably won't need. So that's the cool. Yeah,
right.
Cool. That's all.
So
the part about business is like you can go anywhere with it, and there's so many different ways to use it.
Yes, absolutely, totally agree. Yeah, and I like the analogy with the sports. I was never really a big, I didn't have an arm like you. I'm a lefty as well.
Oh, sweet! I had no wonder we could so.
Yeah, that's right. All his lefties. Now I don't write left. Do you write?
I write left. I throw left. I bat right-handed because my t-ball coach was too lazy to teach me how to.
Oh,
I was like, it's natural. I can bat left-handed, but it's not as smooth. And then
right.
pretty much do a lot of stuff right-handed, but I can also do a bunch of stuff. Or sorry, I do a bunch of stuff left-handed, but I can do some stuff right-handed pretty proficiently too. So
Yeah, see, I only do throw ball, tennis, right? Everything's left-handed sports,
okay,
baseball bat, everything. But I right-handed it. And my father, he's opposite. He's the complete opposite.
right's
He
left-handed,
did
and
he
then
does
right.
he writes left-handed.
That's that's so writing left-handed, or sorry, writing left-handed, doing everything right-handed. Is that's what you can't hear me? So
What
you're
were we
talking about
talking about?
your dad's left-handed, and
Oh,
but he does everything else right-handed, but you're right-handed, do everything left-handed.
yeah. Yeah, it's the craziest thing. I
Which
don't
I
know.
mean, like, kind of makes sense, sort of, I guess, a little bit. Like, I think a lot of people who are able to use both hands are extremely interesting people. There's typically people that like I kind of am drawn to, sort of. I think naturally. I don't know why, but I think it's because they can think with both sides of their brain, whereas I think other people can't. Um,
That makes sense.
I know, like, what is it? So if you're left-handed, you're basically controlled by the right side of your brain, and then right-handed is controlled
Yeah,
by
it's
the left.
opposite, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that makes sense if you can use both proficiently, and that you'd be able to actually be into a lot of different things. Because I know a lot of people like the whole, like you were saying earlier, the whole name of this podcast is like you kind of pick up on a lot of things. I think a lot of people are so stuck in their ways because they just have one way of thinking, and I think in a lot of different ways. I think outside of the box, inside of the box. I can think business wise. I can think kind of a little bit crazy, a little bit of everything. And I think that all makes makes for an interesting a way to go about doing a lot of different things. So
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's why I think podcasting is so great. I mean, you can get all kinds. I mean, look at Joe Rogan. He's one got into podcasting. He's got so many different ideas and people, and from all walks of life. And uh, that I think you learn more by the experiences you go through. So why wouldn't you learn more from the just different people? It's also why I like the
oh
Air
yeah.
Force.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess expound on that because, I know a lot of people, either I think a lot of people have their set mentality on the military. So it'd be interesting to, I guess, hear what you mean by that.
Yeah. So when I went in, it was because of September 11th.
Okay.
Thought it's probably a good thing for me to change. I was kind of stuck doing the same thing. I was going to college and I couldn't stand it. No grades, And then September 11th happens. I saw it on the television screen fall down, and I was in class when it happened. So, that kind of woke everybody in the country up, as it should. And I finished that semester and another semester so that I could go in at a higher rank and honestly to make more money.
Makes sense.
So yeah, it was, if you had a certain amount of hours, you could come in as a E3, which is a A1C, while everybody else was coming in just blank, no rank at all. So that gave you two more stripes over. I guess it was just one stripe. Anyway, the reason why was because I thought it would help me, and I would to do. And my grandfather was prior in the Marines. My other grandfather was in the Air Force. My dad was in the Air Force. So I was like, you know what? Time to do something different. And so I went in and totally physically was not anywhere where I needed to be. And
Yeah.
Air Force is the easiest basic training of any military basic training.
Yeah.
It's cakewalk. Let's put it that way. And now that now that I look back at it, it was cakewalk. But I was not at all concerned about my physical well-being at all when I was that young. I literally ate McDonald's every day because that's where I was a shift manager. I worked all the time. And then when I didn't work, I was out having quality time.
Yeah.
So, Virginia, there's not a lot of people. You got. I had some friends that were African American and from Mexico or something like that, but they were very minority, very few.
Yeah.
And I think my high school was like 150 people graduated, and now they're like triple that. But I got into the Air Force, and you always have what was called a wingman. And so this wingman was the guy that we were always with. And it was a guy from Atlanta, and he was a beast. He and I were about the same height, but he was about 100 pounds heavier, and he was built. I mean, he was a brick house. I mean, but he wasn't good with books.
Yeah.
And so the first couple of weeks were just hell. I mean, for me, I couldn't do the push-ups. I was sucking on the run. It was sad. It was very sad. And so he could do it all. I mean, he could do it standing on his head. And so finally it came to one of us. I'm not even sure who. I can't even tell you his name. But he needed help with the book portion, because there's a book where you got to memorize ranks and you got to memorize details and this kind of stuff. And I could memorize anything, but couldn't do the physical part. And he couldn't memorize anything, but could do the physical part. And so that's where that wingman, that's where that wingman thing came to be. And that's what the military is trying to do, right? Try to tear you down and then build you up with what they've learned over the centuries of military combat. So it was an eye-opening experience, because it was everybody from all walks of life. I mean, I met a guy from Japan. He was coming in to become a citizen, and this was his way of becoming a citizen. People that were programmers. I went to school with people that were programmers, and I also went to school with people that were security forces, which were the Air Force cops.
Yeah.
So you had all kinds of walks of life, which I'd never experienced in Roanoke. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience, especially with a guy that was an African American from Atlanta and could physically kill me. I mean, he was an amazing guy and rough. I mean, me and him did not get along at first.
Yeah.
And then once we figured out that we had to help each other, it was great. And he got through, and so did I, because of his help. I mean, if it wasn't for him, and if it wasn't for me, I'd like to say, he wouldn't have gotten through, and you get recycled is what they call it. And it's just basically sent back to do it again. Right. So it was it was a big eye-opening experience for me. And then they sent you to your school, and then that was completely different, and different people in a different area. Biloxi, Mississippi. I don't know if you ever been south?
I have. Yeah. So my first wife, she when I met her, her family lived in her stepdad was military. They were living in Picayune, Mississippi. So
I had no clue where that is.
So it's like 6 miles from north from the Louisiana border. So like it's over near where southern Mississippi is, about 30-minute drive. So I think that's Hattiesburg, I think. So
gotcha.
That general area.
We weren't allowed to leave. We weren't allowed to leave the base because we were still in training. So we got like one weekend while I was there to get off the base and do something. But I don't recommend going in without some kind of advice or something, because I had no clue. I didn't know who to talk to. I just went to the recruiter and said, "Put me in, coach." And 6-7 months later, I'm flying into Texas and going through the training, and then to Mississippi, and then everybody got some nice bases to go to, and I got to go to F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Spent 4 years there.
That's wild. Yeah, you're like, where's like San Diego for me?
Yeah, one guy got like Panama Beach. The other guy was like, where'd he go? Somewhere in California. And I'm going, really, Cheyenne,
Right.
middle of nowhere. I had no planes.
Yeah.
People are floored by that for some reason, but it's the missile field is there, so that's the army base. There's an Army National Guard base there. They've got planes.
That's funny. The Air Force Base doesn't. Well, it's funny because like I grew up. So my dad was Navy, but we were always on Air Force bases, always like because my dad was a communications guy, so he always my dad flew on Air Force 2 and stuff like that, and like so he was always the comms guy. So like we were always in the Air Force base.
That's what I did.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. If you needed a phone or you need to rewire a building, you called us.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Right.
We didn't do the work. I was a desk jockey the entire time, but we were in charge of the budget and the subcontractor and that kind of thing.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome though. So yeah, I do like that analogy of like having the you have to almost like have like a good solid like foundation with people who like are not like you but like are different. I think that's in a general sense. I think if we could get there as the world could understand that, I think we'd all be in a better place. I think that's also why like something like as simple as like going back to like the Pat McAfee show. That's why like a lot of that works is like not all of those guys are the same. They're all different. They all bring their own little unique things to the plate, but it makes for a interesting collection that also like anybody from the outside can be like, oh, I'm just like Diggs, or I'm just like Nick, or I'm just like Zito, or like, and you can get in and you can be like, oh, this is what it's like to have a bunch of people who who all come from different areas, but can still like kind of connect on like the basic stuff because we're all the same in some sense, but we just come at it from a different perspective.
Hey, that's why Pat McAfee's doing so well.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%.
And Barstool.
Yeah.
The two of them are owning I mean, look at where Pat was.
Yeah.
He was just a podcast. There was no Monday Night Football. Hopefully, ESPN.
Yeah, for real.
So
smartest thing they could do.
God, that mega cast was amazing.
I loved that thing.
I only watched it because of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't have a dog in the race. I was gonna watch it or like at least probably checking on the score, but like I only watched the megacast because I was like, oh, this is super interesting. I love Dan Orlovsky too. I mean, he's a former Lion. I think he's really good. Adam Amin's great. I'm not a huge fan of Levy normally. Like it's not something I'd go out of my way, but even he like kind of came to the Pat McAfee side, and like I enjoyed that side. It feels like they let loose a little instead of being so stuffy.
The only thing I didn't like about the megacast was that there wasn't more.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like they had to move a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were like running on the sidelines, and I thought that was cool that they were on the sidelines and they were getting interviews and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of wanted them to stay. I guess it's because we're always used to the guy sitting in the booth, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think it was.
But I love the fact.
Did like it though. I like that they were down on the level. They could see the things. They could say, this is happening. I think at one point Pat called the guy coming back on the field like 3 minutes before they said anything.
Oh yeah, it was. And like you said, he got into it at the end. Levy did. I mean, he was really at first he was really standoffish, and Orlovsky and Pat back and forth.
Yeah,
the whole time. That is great. It's like when Diggs goes on, about whatever, like the Astros, when he was going on Twitter about the Astros. I put it, inject it into my veins. I just want to see him go off, or Schmitty, or any of them.
Yeah,
that's why. Like I said, that's why they're popular, right? I mean, they're down to earth. They're just like us. They're not some guy in a shiny booth that's out of the weather. You
They're the
know,
everyman.
I just like them.
They represent us who like that's like the conversations I would have with like my 4 close friends like on like it wouldn't be like do it politically correct wise. It's like we say stuff and then I mean even Pat will say stuff and then sometimes he'll be like I have no clue what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's me most of the time.
But like it's funny because it's like that's everybody's experience outside of like actually like watching something is like it's like yeah you say stuff that's like outlandish and then like you have to try to prove it. Like,
yeah, I just the old days of having to watch. What do you think about Netflix and Amazon Prime? Like you used to have to sit down and watch the commercials, right? And
yeah,
you only had 3 stations that had football on it, right, on the weekend.
yeah,
Like now you can watch every game because of DirecTV, and you can go to the NFL Cast or whatever, DirecTV Red Ticket. I mean, there's all kinds of different things. What do you think about that? Netflix, Amazon Prime. Do you like it? Do you prefer it? I like the ability to see what I want whenever I want to see it.
I do enjoy it. The thing I don't like is like I enjoy that aspect of it. I enjoy that I can watch whatever I want. I enjoy that I'm a big documentary guy, so like I enjoy Netflix because you can find a bunch of documentaries and stuff like that. The thing that bothers me is I feel like everything's like Gary Vee says, right? Gary Vee says, look at where we've been and you can tell where we're going. I feel like all of these streaming platforms are just going to become the new channels. And then somebody's going to put it all in one bundle and then we're going to be back to where we're
into
at.
the same well, it's like YouTube used to be no advertising.
Yeah.
And now what are they doing? They're doing advertising.
Yeah.
So they have to, I mean, I agree, they have to monetize, right? Everybody's going to have to monetize at some point. It costs money, it costs time.
Yeah.
So you gotta.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you watch commercials on Netflix.
Well, it's like it's funny because like I think my brother posted something and it was like cutting the cord was supposed to be cheaper or whatever, and then it's like I have this Plus and I have Netflix and I have this and then if you total it all up, you basically have Now, I think I still like it because I'm still a pretty basic person. Like I have DirecTV. I will get rid of DirecTV, and I've said this from the start. Once they lose the football package, because I can get the baseball package where I can get like basketball package anywhere. You can get that other places. They have the stronghold on football, and so I'm a Lions fan and my wife's Colts fan. It makes sense for us to have those so we can watch our team. But once they get rid of
that's why we kept. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I would say once they get rid of that, then I mean I'll be done with DirecTV, and I just won't have that because we don't anything you can watch pretty much anywhere. Like you can get ABC, NBC, all that stuff. You can stream their stuff. You have Netflix. A lot of those shows are coming over. You'll have deals being made. Somebody will buy probably ABC properties and put them on their streaming platform. So, which I like because I'm like, sometimes I don't want I have all these channels, but I don't hardly ever watch anything because I'm just like, give me live sports and then give me the ability to watch a show. And then the way I think so many people live their lives, it's like go, 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 go. But I have this 8-hour block. Let me knock out 6 episodes or whatever. Like people binge it.
Yep.
So I think it works in that way. I think it makes more sense than the old way of like, every 8 o'clock you have to be in front of your TV to watch, whatever, the Roseanne show or whatever, you know what I mean? Like how it used to be. Like, it's like, those days just don't make sense anymore. Like, so.
Yeah, you had TGIF, right?
Yeah. TGIF was awesome. Actually, it's funny.
Friday.
So I was going to say, I haven't said this, but one of the podcasts I listen to, and it's like a guilty pleasure to listen to, is it's called Worst Ever Podcast. And it's basically these 2 people they talk about, and they're both actors, and they have somebody come in and they talk about like kind of, it basically is based off like their worst ever audition or something like that. But then they talk about a bunch of other stuff too. But it's actually the lady who played now I can't remember her name. It was on Step by Step, the tomboy girl.
Oh yeah.
Can't think of her name right now. And
I don't know what it is either.
but she's one of the hosts, and then the other host is this guy's name's Alec Led, but it's Alec Led is shortened. He's an actor. It's actually DJ Khaled's brother.
Oh, okay.
And so it's an interesting podcast, but like I know she's been on some other podcasts. I want to get her on my podcast at some point because she has some interesting stories, and she's like a mom of two, and she's like really pushing progressively to be like do direct shows. She's done directing on like some major shows as well, and like really pushing forward the female aspect. I'd like to have a couple more females on here, obviously, even though it's called Swiss Army Man. I think that applies to everybody. You know what I mean? Like women and women. You know, it
absolutely.
matter, but, like, and I think some
in
of
this
those
day and age, absolutely.
Yeah, some of those people just do a bunch of stuff, and they are talented in certain areas, but then they also have these other things that they do is really really important. Like I don't think we're defined, and I think that's the problem. I think so many people feel defined by like maybe their job or like being a dad or being a mom or being whatever, but you really do all these different things. And so Swiss Army Man kind of applies to anybody because it's like everyone has those things that I think very few people are the greatest ever at something, but they're really good or still great at a lot of things. And I think they just see themselves as their top thing that they're good at. When really, if you just add all these things up, you can almost do anything because you have so many different skills that people just don't recognize in themselves.
I can that's why when you named it and you did that intro, man, I was like, oh, I'm all in on this. I like this because you can't just be. I think now, especially now, whether it's personal, you just can't be one anymore, right? I mean, my grandfather worked and then he went to civil service, and then he retired, and that was all with the government. So, you know, now I think they're saying it's like every 7 years you're going to have a new job.
Yeah.
And that to me, you know, my last job, I was there for 13 years, and then I was in the Air Force for 4. You know, I haven't jumped around a lot, but I certainly learned a lot of different skills from every single place you go to.
And so I think that's the key thing too, is like, I think a lot of it is, even like job wise, but also just like in life. Like I think nowadays you can learn more than ever, especially with like a YouTube or something like that. If you're like, man, I want to figure out how to knit a scarf, like I could figure that out in like 3 seconds on YouTube. Then I can go to the store and buy the supplies, and I could probably make a scarf by the end of tonight.
Anything you want to do, you can find on it.
And then because of guys like Gary Vee, I could probably start my own Etsy shop and start making money on it. You know what I mean? Like, you can do almost anything if you have that ingenuity to do it.
I mean, he got me back into baseball cards and football cards, basketball cards. Yeah. He got me back into flipping. I mean, all of that stuff. You know, just whatever you were interested in, you can find it online, and that's what the great. I mean, the internet's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah,
it's brought us all together, right?
All of us.
I mean, they used to say there was like a certain amount of people to go meet whoever you want to go meet or something. I can't remember how many people. It's like, there you go. Well, we're even closer now. I mean, I've talked to Gary Vee in DMs. I've talked to Gary Vee.
Well, Gary Vee follows you. When I was trying to go through, I forgot what I was doing. I was trying to figure something out, and I went into the people who follow you, and I was like, "Oh, Gary Vee follows you." Like Pat McAfee follows me. It's like the stupidest thing ever. You're like, "Oh, okay." Like we're that close.
Hey, you can literally DM Gary. He's gonna see it.
Yeah.
You can DM Pat. You've talked to Pat. I've talked to Gary. It's a great story. He posted something about Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan. Are you a wrestling fan?
Yeah, I WrestleMania 3. That was
okay. Yes. So
I've seen it many times.
Same here. So he had a autographed Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant Hulk Hogan, where their face facing together picture, and WrestleMania is in the background. And so he posted it, and he's like, "It's going to take a lot of money to get this." And so I sent him a DM, and I sent Lou, the guy that does the baseball cards for him. Do you remember the name of the? They have a different shop.
I can't think of it now. Called. Yeah, I can't think of it right.
I messaged Lou, and Lou said he would get out of. He sent me a DM like 10 minutes later. I was like,
"Yeah,
how much is it going to cost me?" Because that was the one that I saw that my parents did not want me to see. They did not want me to see wrestling. I was young enough that they were like, "No, you're too young to see that. It's violent," you know. So my uncles went to the VHS store and got him.
Oh, nice.
And put them in for me to watch. Oh yeah, it was great, and I still remember it to this day. And so Gary messaged me. He's like, "You don't have the number," and I was like, "Okay, well, I'll tell you what I'm willing to do." So I gave him the number, and he goes, "Damn." And
That's
so
awesome.
Ever since then, we've he sent it to me. I bought it. I have it. I display it proudly, and
that's awesome.
It would take a lot to get rid of that, because it's not just that it came from Gary Vee. I mean, that was cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, that thing is like story,
right?
Like so important nowadays. I mean, like, because like I know, like, for a fact, like I know a lot of people, like they were like when I called into the Pat McAfee show, the new one, and then Pat was like, "We wanted to hire you," and we still do. We still plan on it. I know a lot of people would be like, "Now, like, I want it now." I mean, that was September something. I had talked to him on the phone in June. Like, I already knew it was in the new stuff had already like happened, and just stuff in that field goes by so fast. So it's like, to me, like, I'm like, I may get hired by Pat at some point. I may not, but either way, I have this story that like is like a really cool thing. Be like, I was in the middle of my route one day, and I got a DM from him, and it was like, "What's your number?" And I gave him my number, and he was like, "I'm gonna call you later on this afternoon." And then I was like, "Okay, cool." And then and I was like, "That's bullshit. There's not a chance he's gonna call me." And then my phone rings from an Indiana, number, and I'm like, "That must be Pat." And sure enough, Pat's on the other side.
You're dropping the phone trying to answer.
Yeah. I remember I was literally, my son was taking a nap, and I was headed up the stairs to go wake him up, and I was just and it rang, and I was like, "I guess I answer this." And we talked for like 6-7 minutes, and then everything balls started rolling, and then it just goes out, stuff happens, and he gets a bunch of different offers, and everything blows up for him. And most people would be like, "Well, why am I not part of it?" And I'm like, you know what, I never had in the cards that I was going to work for Pat McAfee. I just did this because I love it, and I do the things that I do because I love it. And so it's like, I think people are so impatient nowadays because everything is a very like quick society. But it's like, what?
Fast food nation.
Yeah, people used to intern for like years before they had like an actual great paying job. They'd get paid minimum wage to learn how to do something, you know what I mean? And then they'd make all this money afterward. So I'm like, you know what? I have time. It's only growing. This realm of stuff is only growing, and I that's where I love Gary Vee is so many people. It's like the Jets story, right? He's like, it's so hard to believe that people get disappointed when they're like, "Gary, when are you buying the Jets?" And he's like, 20 years. And they're like, "Why not now?" And he's like, "I'm telling people that I'm going to achieve my lifelong dream that's going to cost billions of dollars." And they're like, "You're not going to do it now?" Like, you're like, what the?
It doesn't make sense. Like, and I'm guilty of that too. I totally am. I should have this now.
Yeah.
I'm not a patient person. You can ask my wife that. God bless her. I'm not a patient. I'm not patient at all. And thankfully, she's the polar opposite of me. I get these big dreams, and want to be the next, Pat McAfee or whatever. And then she's like, bring it down a little bit. Start here and let's work. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, because I'd probably still be flipping burgers at McDonald's.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's the thing is, I think, and it goes back to, I think that's the great like thread that is kind of interjected itself into this conversation is, all right, got your back.
That was me that time.
Oh, it's all good.
No. Had a phone call come in.
Oh, I did that the first time I did it on my phone.
Is there a way to turn it off?
I don't think I got it to where mine now, like it will, it won't go to it. It'll just like across the bottom and I can hit decline and but I don't know. The first time it messed up everything. I was like, I don't know what's going on.
They completely knocked it came up with like, you're kicked out of your browser, refresh. So
yeah,
I had to do all that.
I can
Sorry
imagine. No, it's all no, it's all good. No, I was just saying, like, I think that's the common thread is everything kind of weaves through. You have a you know, everybody has a buddy or like has somebody extra there. It's like even now, like, you know, with us, like, you know, we have our little accountability like to each other. Like we're both working towards a goal weight wise, and like obviously like anything you do, like I know we had talked, and hopefully I don't, you know, blow your secret or whatever, but like I know you said you were thinking about doing a podcast yourself, and like when you do that, I'm gonna support that, and like having that support group and like even people who are like just there like-minded with you, I think is a really key thing. And I think that's a cool thing about the internet nowadays, that people can find each other and bring each other together, and like that would have never met before. I mean, and that's an awesome thing.
Okay. All right, what we were talking now, I already forgot.
Like you can find people like-minded on the internet, and like
that's right.
And I think that's like it used to be like, you know, a crazy person like be like, hey, I have this friend that I talked to on the internet, and people would be like, you're a Looney Tune. What are you talking about? But now it's like normal. It's commonplace.
Yeah, Twitter for me was so confusing. I just didn't get it at first, and now, man, I probably spend way too much time on Twitter. You know, everything is on the cell phone now, right?
Yeah.
And you can see updates to anything you want to see. You can see trending, you know, and you can meet people that you never thought you'd meet before. There's some great. I used to say that I was a huge sports fan, that I was a Steelers diehard fan, and then I got on Twitter. I'm not a diehard fan. I'm not. I love the Steelers. I got Steelers everywhere in my house.
Yeah.
And my daughter's crib, when she was a baby, had Troy Polamalu's signed picture above her head. Okay, I couldn't have been a bigger Steelers fan. And then I went on Twitter.
There's some diehards, man. There's some diehards.
Yes, there are more than diehards. I mean, there should be another term, because those guys know Gary always said that he was a fanatical, and I was like, yeah, he is fanatical. He knows the offensive line by name, and stats and numbers, and the holder, the placeholder. You know, I don't know any of that crap. I know Boswell sucked last year, and he's great this year. That's what I know.
My favorite Gary thing is like when he talks about how like he like his weird flex of like buying like what is it called, the scout team, like or not the scout team, but the team why can't I think of it? I have CT today. I have Diggs brain today. I don't you know, where they're not actually on the roster, but they're like practice squad. That's what it is.
Yeah.
He'll buy the practice squad roster jerseys and then wear them, and then people will be like, "Oh, is that your name?" And he's like, "No, this is our practice squad guy."
You don't even know the Jets. You call yourself a fan.
Such a Gary V flex. It's awesome. But yeah, I think that's the cool thing is like having so much of like of that stuff out there. Like you can literally you can start a business today and it can become successful just because you have so much access and can do a lot of the things you couldn't do in the past. And like you can go direct to consumer so much easier. And like I think that's obviously why Pat, like if you think about it, Pat 10 years ago wouldn't be able to do what Pat's doing now, because he'd have to go through the whole guard of like the media, and like you wouldn't really be able to tell who is following him, because like there would be nothing to really measure that metric. And now you can look and be like, Pat dominates the internet, and therefore Pat's going to dominate actual media, because if someone gives him a chance, all those people are going to be so excited they're going to go follow it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, look at the YouTube and the Instagram stars now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a completely different. You don't have to be in Hollywood anymore.
No.
You know, helps. You don't have to be there. I mean, he's in Indianapolis, and he was on College Game Day.
Yeah.
Like anyone can be wherever they want to be now.
And I think the cool thing about Pat too is like, it's like, oh, he's going to do College Game Day, and you're just like, no, like I'm a Pat fan. I know Pat's going to take over College Game Day, and then College Game Day is going to keep wanting him back and look what happened. It's just, this guy's the limit for Pat because he can do whatever, and like because he has that thing that, and no longer do you need that gatekeeper to be like, we're going to allow you to do this. It's just going to come to the point where it's like, what are you guys doing? Like Monday Night Football will eventually happen for Pat, I think, because whether it's this time or next time or the time after that, eventually, if he wants to do it, he'll be able to do it because it's going to be to the point where like, why are we not getting viewers when we could get viewers to this game? That why like because they're like, it's the NFL, people are going to watch, but if you can get even more people to watch, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean that's a no-brainer. You put him on there, the ratings go up.
Yeah,
I mean when DAZN was putting it on Twitter, the numbers that I was seeing there in the middle of the day watching Pat McAfee show was amazing. I'm going, you don't see those numbers even for Gary Vee in the middle of the day pops up on a live, and he's getting numbers the same as Gary Vee, you know, and I'm just like, everybody's a lot closer now because of the internet and because of Twitter and Facebook and all the other, you know, alphabets. So I'm excited to see where he goes. I mean, this sounds like, you know, this should be a I love you, Pat McAfee show podcast. But he means a lot to both of us. He didn't have a direct role, but certainly the reason why I'm doing the things that I'm doing now is because I saw what those guys went through over the last 2 to 3 years, getting to where they're at now. You know, and I'm the type of most salespeople that I know that are any good, they want to be better than they were yesterday.
Yeah,
and sometimes you don't do that. Well, I'm trying to work towards getting back to that. And you know, last year and this year, like you said, Gary Vee says it's going to be 50 years before he buys the Jets. It's going to be a long time for me to get to the weight that I want to get to, but I'm going to get there.
Yeah. You got to start somewhere, right? You just got to start at some point. I think that's the cool thing. I think that's why we've talked so much about Gary Vee and Pat McAfee, because I think we both have that respect. And I think we both also have the vision to see that like those two guys are going to be people that we talk about in 30, 40 years as people who revolutionized like how things are in media, as business, and like, I mean, Pat essentially, like, I know it's a joke, it's like support small business, but like Pat is paying multiple people's salaries, and he's doing it with out of like nothing, out of thin air. He's created an industry, and it's like, that's cool. And same thing with Gary Vee, like, you know, with his wine library turning into like, you know, VaynerMedia, and now that's taking over. And I see people like now they're like, oh, like someone just posted that Dwayne Wade retirement commercial, and I'm like, I know that was done by VaynerMedia, and I'm like, that's cool. Like those kind of things, like they're putting out this content that like doesn't have their name all over it, but you can tell the touches that they're putting on things, and that stuff's going to change the way media is done in general.
Yeah, I mean, Pat's changing the sportscasting game. Heartland is changing the podcasting game.
Yeah.
Barstool did it. Barstool did it too.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan. I mean, Joe Rogan's the news now. I don't care what anybody says.
Joe Rogan
you
is
want to
like
find out
all be all really when it comes to.
Yeah, somebody called him the new Oprah, and I was like, yeah,
I mean,
that's about right.
Well, it's funny because he's, I know people are like, he's the new Carson, he's the new Letterman, he's the new Oprah, he's the new, I think he's the new, all of those things put together because he's that powerful. I mean, like you see, like this past week, Robert Downey Jr. was on there, like promoting.
Yeah, great podcast.
Like, it's like crazy. And like, I know like my last guest, Brent Tobler, I mean, he's in that same realm, and he you know, he's running the circles with Joe Rogan, and like, I mean, you even see what it's done to the comedy landscape. Everyone has to have a podcast now. He showed that like you can sell tickets, and you can straight up reach out to your own fan base, and you can be more than just a comedian, and that can help hook people in. Like knowing their backstory and knowing who they are as actual people, not just the 45 to an hour they're doing on stage, you know?
Yeah, the world's changed. It's going to be different. I totally agree. I mean, what is what Gary's done for business. Do you remember did you see the video that he did that's where the flip life came from?
Yeah.
That completely changed the game.
Yeah.
That got more people into business because you didn't have to have that starting point of a high dollar number to go start a franchise or whatever. You can literally go to your closet, get the sneakers out of your closet, sell those, go buy more and flip them again. And I've done it myself just for fun money, just to do it. The baseball card thing that he's doing. And then Pat on the other side, and Joe Rogan and Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, Brant. I mean, all of these guys have gotten better because of people like Joe, Pat, and look at Todd McComas. I mean, I can't wait to see, if he gets close enough, that 7-hour drive he always talks about. I gotta go see him because he's so funny. He's so entertaining, and it's because of Pat. I would have never heard of Todd McComas if it wasn't for Pat. Right? Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't have seen Barstool if it wasn't for Pat.
Well, I mean,
that's the thing. Pay attention to Barstool.
See, I knew Barstool, but I didn't really pay attention in the way that I do now until Pat went there. So
same.
Like that was
and when he left, I didn't really stay with Barstool. I went with Pat, but I definitely follow what Barstool is doing about and the crazy stuff that Prez does, and it's a good thing. It's just like, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's crazy too because it's like even from the offshoots of that, like my buddies at the Anomalies podcast, like they all are stoolies, and like I would have never met any of those guys through that kind of stuff, and like they're doing some cool stuff, and just the reach they have in the little pockets that like they're making people want to do that same thing and start their own little pirate ship, and like people are doing it, and it's eventually everyone's going to be able to have that access if they want to put the work into it.
Yeah, absolutely. You see the success of other people, and you want to go along with it, so everybody gets better. And that's in sports too, right? I mean, look at Curry, right? Curry was good, but then Klay Thompson came.
Yeah.
Right? And Klay Thompson left. Curry wasn't that good. But you put Curry together and Wade and Pippen. And you always had somebody else. Now Jordan trust me, I understand. Jordan was a different animal, but
see,
Pippen was never the same.
I was gonna say I'm the school of like I don't think Jordan accomplished what Jordan accomplished without Pippen and Grant or Pippen and Rodman. I mean Jordan's Jordan, but he couldn't win a playoff game without them. So
couldn't. No,
and he was getting beat by guys like the Pistons who had a solid team and they had multiple players. It's like those kind of things. You have to have a team.
Yeah, I like Curry. I think he's changed the game, just like we've talked about with all these other people. He's actually made me want to watch basketball again because I didn't want to watch LeBron just kill everybody all day long. Right?
Yeah.
I went from Michael Jordan to not watching basketball to Curry.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people have.
And Curry,
because of that.
Yeah. Dale Curry went to Virginia Tech, which is right up the road from us.
Yeah.
And so Dale Curry being Steph's dad, we got a connection there. So I was, I'll see what. So, but again, he had to have Clay.
Yeah.
So,
but by the way, how Virginia Tech screwed up not landing Steph Curry is ridiculous. But I'll leave that for another day. Like how do you?
I don't know. I don't even want to get there. I don't even want to go there. Who knows? And then we lose Buzz to A&M. So
yeah,
we'll see. We've had a pretty good year so far, though.
Yeah, I out of all the schools in Virginia, I'd pull for. I'm a Michigan State fan, but Virginia Tech. I always like to see them do well. So I've always kind of been partial to them. But we moved there like right as like Vic was coming out of like Hampton and stuff, and like went there. So it was like cool to watch him go there and kind of crush everything and just go dominant. So
I saw him one game. I think it was West Virginia, and he just ran all over that field. He was a human joystick before Lamar Jackson was.
Oh yeah, he was the originator, and now that's almost become the template in a weird way. Like, I mean, you look at Mahomes and you look at like Jackson, and I mean a lot of Kyler Murray. Those guys are very much in the mold of Michael Vick.
I can't support Lamar Jackson because he's on the Baltimore Ravens, because I'm a Steelers fan and I can't stand the Dirty Birds. But Mahomes and Jackson are gonna win a lot of games and win a lot of trophies, and it's gonna be very painful for us Steelers.
You guys will get a guy after Ben. You guys always draft well. You guys do well. That's the one thing you guys do really, really well is draft. You guys find steals.
I lost you.
Oh, I think. Are you there now? Okay, I think we're back. No.
Okay, there you are.
Okay, yeah.
What'd you say on that last one?
I was gonna say you guys are the one thing the Steelers like always impress me is their drafting. They always, I mean, you guys always just find steals. I think it's funny because like people are like, oh, Antonio Brown, and it's like okay, but then you have Juju, and then you have like, but before that you guys got Plaxico, and you had Santonio Holmes, and you had like Mike Wallace, and like you guys always had these guys that were good receivers that you just pulled out of nowhere almost. It seems like.
Yeah, we always. I like the organization because it's family.
Yeah,
they've only had 3 coaches. We haven't gone through coaches like underwear like the Redskins do or Dallas.
The Lions.
So yeah. So I wasn't going to bring it up.
Yeah, that's all good.
But yeah, after seeing what Tomlin was able to do with those 2 players, that I was not a fan of Tomlin because I was a coward guy the whole time. And then when all of this went down with Bush last year or 2 years ago, and now Brown this year, I'm like, this man can handle high talent that is overhyped and make them do the best that they can for the team. So I'm all in on Tomlin, even if we don't go to the Super Bowl next year. He can stay as long as he wants in Pittsburgh is all I care about.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing. I mean, ultimately, like you guys are always in the mix somewhere. So it's like you can't really you can't fire as a guy who comes from like a Lions background, where it's like, I mean, you can't fire a coach like Tomlin. I mean, he's always got you in the mix no matter what. You know what I mean? So it's like, unless he has a couple like 1 in 15 seasons in a row, maybe then. but he shouldn't.
Yeah, he should have had. Should have had that time. Right?
Yeah, they did some special stuff this year, surprisingly.
Amazingly, yeah, I couldn't believe it, man. He turned that team around after Ben got hurt, and then with the 3rd string free agent, non-draft pick. I mean, Duck was confident, and he lost his confidence there in the end of the season. But you do that when you get rattled. I mean, you're playing some guys that you've never played before. So,
and I mean, you're in a spot where you're just not.
He's in a totally different league.
Yeah, some guys have to go through that. I mean, you're not everyone's going to be your Tom Brady or your Ben Roethlisberger or something like that, where like they have the ability to like kind of almost erase the situation and no pressure is that high. It's just you kind of just play the same way. They're like the good old pitchers, like who like you give up a home run and you're supposed to be like, you just automatically forget you gave that home run up. You're just back on the that. Those guys have that kind of thing, and not everyone has it. And you kind of have to learn it sometimes. And I think Duck will be good if someone gives him a chance. I assume they're going to stay with Rudolph.
I think so.
But so it'll be interesting to see.
That's what they say. Yeah.
But I think
they say they're sticking with Rudolph, which I think in long term, that's what I like about the Steelers. Right? They stick with them.
Yeah.
They stuck with Brown longer than they should have. And that's coming from somebody who was a big fan of Brown, right? I mean, what a waste! What a waste of talent that man is. So, but Tomlin was able to do that, and somebody like Duck deserves a chance somewhere.
Yeah, I think he'll go. I think
that's
definitely
hurting.
he proved he could. I mean, I think he proved he can win in the NFL. So some team will take a chance on him for sure. He might have a reverse Tannehill, effect maybe, like, because Tannehill was a high draft pick, but like he'll find himself in the spot where he finds the right team and it clicks, But
yeah, he reminds me a lot of Favre.
Oh yeah,
a young Brett Favre, just not confident.
Yeah,
he's got to get that confidence on his
yeah,
side,
but
then he'll be all right.
Yeah, once that happens, that's everything. Confidence. I mean, that's the thing that I think is great about listening to McAfee is like you see how good of a punter he was, but then like you hear him and he's like, I didn't even know how to punt. Like you're just like, some people just go out there and they're like, like, I don't know how many people would be like, I don't know how to punt, but I'm going to start as a punter. One of 32 players in the NFL that's a punter at the top level, and just I'll figure it out.
Just the sheer athleticism that he has to be able to just say, yeah, I'll do it.
We'll figure it out, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Right.
So I know I've had you on for quite a while. I know we've had a couple technical difficulties, but I do have some questions, so we'll get to that, because I always like.
Sounds good.
I only have like one real question every time, and it's always the question that my last guest asked for the guest. So my last guest was Brent Tobler, and he asked, "What is your worst road trip?"
So I told you that I was going to go back and listen to it. So I went back and tried to. I've really had no bad road trips, except for one experience, and it was when I was in. It was before I was in the military, and my best friend and I and a coworker of his got in this little lowered two-door Honda Civic, and took the back. He had no back seats, so the two front seats were racing seats. So no shocks at all in this thing. It was worst ride. And we were going to go see. Do you know who Rodney Carrington is?
Yeah.
Comedian. We were going to see Rodney Carrington, his Morningwood show. Up in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's about an hour away. And the guy that was driving, he was always on. He was 100 miles an hour or he was dead. Like that was just his personality. And he was always a good time, and we were raring to go. And so we went up there and we're booking it. We're probably going 100 miles an hour. And it's pretty straight, but we were young and dumb. And next thing I know, we are screaming like Tommy Boy, like David Spade and Chris Farley. We're all just looking at each other and screaming because a deer and we had to pull over, get out of the car, walk around a little bit, because it would have totaled the car. We would have been in a horrible situation. And so from then on, we had probably about 20-25 minutes left. We took the speed limit. We made sure to turn every on. We had the high beams on. I mean, we weren't going to get hit from another deer or pulled over or whatever. It totally changed the whole mood of the trip, because we were really excited to go up there. We get there and we get in, no problems. They start serving us, alcohol. So we loosen up a little bit, and then Rodney Carrington comes out and steals the show, and it totally changed the trip. But on the way up there, we almost died to go watch this concert with Rodney Carrington, which was in a bar. He wasn't even as big as as he is now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I mean, to this day, I still slow down when I see deer, because it was that close. I mean, if he didn't go over the hood, if that buck didn't go over the hood, I'm shocked.
That's crazy. Yeah,
we all saw our lives flash.
Those kind of things will
saw our lives flash,
trip you up. So that's a great bad road trip story. Like most road trips, though,
Yeah.
even bad ones, they have something good in them, so it's kind of funny. But so then
Great.
yeah, right. And then my other question is the question that you want to ask our next guest, and then we'll answer it.
Yeah, I love that format. By the way, that's awesome.
I always just think it's fun.
So we've talked.
It weaves it all together. It's a nice little weave.
Yeah, it's a nice way to segue, right? So
Yeah.
The one I came up with because you and I like we've talked about all day. We have this kind of connection with business and characters, and kind of weave that relationship on Twitter and outside of Twitter now. Yeah. And again, I thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Oh no,
I told you I was nervous. Hopefully, it's not too bad for your fans. So, so this is kind of a business question: living or dead? Who would you want to have 30 minutes with that is a entrepreneur, businessman, person?
Okay. So that'll be a great question for the next person. I can answer first if you want me to.
I can if you want it, either way.
Oh, I have mine in my brain. It's a weird one. It's not a weird one, but it's a weird one. Dave Thomas.
Dave Thomas, really?
Yeah. So when I was I was in 7th grade, the first time I was introduced to really entrepreneurial, someone who was an entrepreneur was I had to do a book report, and I happened to have a Dave Thomas book for some reason. So I did a report on Dave Thomas, and his backstory was very interesting to me. Like, he came from being adopted, and he really did a lot of that stuff inside of his own stuff, and he worked his way up through other channels, and until he could actually become an entrepreneur, which was much later on in life than most people think. He actually it took him a lot longer. So, but he put in all the work to get there, and each stage, he could have been like, it's not working out for me. He started in a spot in life that was not ideal for you to become an entrepreneur, and a successful one at that. And he built it, from the ground up. So I think it'd be interesting to spend 30 minutes with him, kind of gather from his own self about what was the drive there, and what was his ability to keep pushing, and then eventually give back to the thing that started him, which was, he obviously gave a lot to adoption, foster stuff and all that kind of stuff, and still does actually, even, past his, being dead. His foundation still lives and stuff, so leaving that kind of legacy, I think it'd be interesting to see kind of if he thought along the way that would be something that he could get to, or if it was just step by step, or if he even had a grand vision of what it was and stuff like that. All those would be interesting questions.
Kind of a quick answer for the podcast, right? He built up, right? Went through a ton of challenges and didn't get it till late life.
Patience.
I picked JP. Do what?
I said he had patience.
Yeah, which I don't have. JP Morgan is who I.
Okay.
Now I picked a little different reason. Yours is a lot better than mine, but conspiracy theory nut, and I live and breathe watching conspiracy documentaries on YouTube. Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli and those conspiracy guys. Love those podcasts. Listen to them all the time.
That's awesome.
But JP Morgan loaned the United States money, and I gotta know was able to make that to get us out of. And I would love to know the end to accomplish that, and Jekyll's island story, and how he was able to go through, and actually the truth behind some of the stuff that he was able to get to become the richest man in the world when he was alive. So I'd love to bend his ear on some of those conspiracy theories.
That'd be awesome. I love conspiracy theories as well. So at some point, round 2, when you come back on the show, we're going to talk conspiracy theories. See, I didn't even realize you were a conspiracy theory guy. So now we got something to talk about.
I'm all in. We could do this for another 4 hours, bro. I'm telling you, I love conspiracy theories.
That's awesome. Well, so tell everybody where they can follow you at, because I think a lot of people should be following you, because you're a good Twitter follower for sure. Well, Twitter follow for sure. And then you're obviously just a great guy. We've figured that out through this entire podcast and just in my interactions with you and stuff. So tell everybody where they can go find you.
Well, on Twitter, I'm at Brent J. Powell. Same thing with Instagram. I'm on Facebook as Brent Powell. Any way you want to reach me, come on. I'm even on TikTok.
Yeah.
So you need to jump on the bandwagon if you hadn't. The kids love it. So
I need to get
on
my
TikTok too, all under Brent J. Powell.
Okay, Brent J. Powell, and I will put that underneath. If you've seen the video format, it'll be underneath his box this entire time. So so Brent, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being a guest today. Look forward to having you on again, and thank you for taking your time and spending it with us. And when you start your podcast, that might be a good time to have you back on, and then we'll talk about that and conspiracies and all that kind of stuff. Do you have a thought of what you want to do with your podcast, like what subject matter?
Yeah, it's going to be kind of like your format, I'm thinking.
Sweet.
Lines of different people, I lean a lot towards the business side, so I'm thinking of on that route.
Oh, that'd be cool. I look forward to that. I love it.
I'm looking forward to you. This is how you push me over to say this was fun, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Good. I'm glad that like you see it. It's even with the technical difficulties, which is not as normal as we've had today. We've just had some bad luck, but it's it's still fun. It's super easy to go about. So I look forward to
we got through it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for watching. This has been episode number 17. Look forward to seeing you again soon, and we will talk later. Peace.